All right, so we are going to start in Premiere because we're going to create what's called a dynamic link. So when we make our animation in After Effects, it will update in Premiere and we'll be able to change the text if needed. So it's a good little trick to know. So start in Premiere, new project, and you can just leave the default settings. Make sure you have it saved where you want it to be saved. And you can name it P4. Title tracking is what we're doing now. But this will actually be the file for your whole project for. Okay, so we're going to import a video file. You can choose any video file you want from Pixabay. Just pick anything that you enjoy, or you can use a video that you have made yourself, which would be great. So it's File, Import, or Control-Command-I. And find the file you want to use. I have one here from Pixabay. Just make sure it's 1920 by 1080. And then you just drag it into the timeline to create a sequence. Make sure it looks okay. Now, this is all we're doing in Premiere. We're just kind of setting it up. So we're going to right-click in here in the timeline. I'm right-clicking. And we're going to replace with After Effects composition. So replace with After Effects composition. And then it's going to open up After Effects, so you let that work. Okay, so it's going to open up in After Effects, and you're going to choose where to save it. And save it in the same folder as your Premiere project folder. It will just make your life easier. And now we're going to come back into Premiere, and you can see that you have this little linked icon. So these two projects are now linked. It's called a dynamic link that Adobe uses, and what changes you make in After Effects will show up in Premiere, and also you'll be able to change the text. We're going to make text in After Effects, and you'll be able to change the name. Like if you had a client who changed their mind, you wouldn't have to do this whole thing over again. You'd just be able to change the name in Premiere as you're editing, and it's a really nice thing to be able to do. So I'm going to save and quit out of Premiere so my computer doesn't freak out. But you can leave Premiere open if your computer can handle that. And then I'm going to come into After Effects, and we are going to do what's called motion tracking. So there's a whole workspace dedicated to motion tracking, which you can get to up here with these double arrows and just click motion tracking. And we're going to allow After Effects to do a lot of work for us. So we're going to just move the time indicator to the spot where we want our title, our text, to start showing up. So I want mine showing up around here. You can do yours wherever you want. And then you're going to click Track Camera. And then you're just going to let it work. This is going to pop up. Just press OK. So it's analyzing the background. You're just going to let it work. Okay, so after After Effects has done its job and solved it'll say solve in camera, then these little X's will show up, and what After Effects has done is it's read the video footage and it's giving you spots where you can place objects, and we're going to place text in here. And so if you had some errors that come up, it might have been the shot type, and it might be dependent on how your footage was filmed. So you can try changing it to variable zoom if you were having some errors come up. Otherwise, there's other troubleshooting we can try in class. So if you press Control Z here and undo, it's going to undo the track camera that we just did. So be careful not to do that, because you'll have to go through that whole process again. So you can zoom in if you want. You can come here and zoom in more, and you can hold the space bar to move the hand around. So you get we're going to place our text, and you want to get it exactly in the place you want it. So I'm going to click, and you can see there'll be 3 X's that show up, and I'm going to right click right in the middle of that target, and we're going to set ground plane and origin. You won't really see anything happen here, but that's an important first step to just set it up. So now any object placed in the scene will be set at the center of that target. and it will move along with the video footage, which is really cool. And then we're going to right click again on the target. So same thing, right click again, and we're going to create text and camera. So now a text and a 3D tracker camera are automatically created, and they show up here in the timeline. Your text could be really big or small like mine, but we can edit it. So I'm just going to come back to the full screen. You can see when I move the time indicator, it's going to render kind of slow, but the text is embedded into the scene here and it's moving along with the video footage. So that's what that motion tracker really did. It's sort of placing the text in, or any object in the footage. It's pretty cool. So now the text is lying flat and I want it standing up. You can have yours lying flat if you want, but if you want it standing up, this is how you get there. You can come into the text layer here and transform, and you can see the orientation. You just want to make them all 0. And now the text is standing up. And you can see it's still moving with the scene. And if you're in the 3D class, you'll notice these axes. It automatically created a 3D image. You can see here, this is the 3D box in the layer, and these axes are where you move it around. So I'm going to change the workspace up here to text so we can edit the text a little more. So just clicking on these double arrows here and go into text. So we have more editing options. We are going to move the anchor point a little bit just to move it around and get it placed exactly where you want it so you can see how to move it. So we're here in the text layer. In the Y rotation, we're going to scroll on the second number in the Y rotation. And you can just see that moves from side to side, and maybe I'll have mine facing the front a little more. It's really going to depend on where yours is placed in your scene. I'm also going to go on the anchor point, and I'm going to scroll on the Y axis. So it's X, Y, Z. So the Y is the middle, and you can move it up. And you want to do it this way rather than moving these axes, these arrows here, because I want the arrows to stay in that point where I have it. So you can get yours placed wherever you want. Just make sure you're not moving it with the handles. Move it here in the text layer transform, because we want the handles to stay in that original spot, and it'll just keep things easier. So we're going to make the text 3D. So we're going to come to text layer, in the text layer here, and see this material options. And what we can do is get some more options in here. We already have some options, but we want to add more options. So we're going to come up here to the renderer. See how it says classic 3D? We want to make it 4D. So we're going to change it to Cinema 4D. You're going to get some errors and see what's disabled in here. So the track mats, layer style, some of the stuff we haven't learned yet, but motion blur, we're going to talk about a little bit later. So this is what's disabled. So you can do what's called a pre-composition or pre-compose these layers. If that's something you need to do, we can talk about it in class. But if you wanted to preserve some of these elements that would be disabled, you can pre-compose the layers. But we don't have to worry about that right now. Come in here and look at the options. So I have mine pretty low for while I'm working on it, so it works faster. And then when you go to render, you can turn up the quality. So it's a pretty good rule of thumb to work at a lower quality, unless your computer is awesome, but mine isn't. So I'm going to keep it at a lower quality, and so my computer works a little faster. Then just remember before you render to turn up that quality. Okay, press OK. Okay. So now we can come in here and we can see we have another more options here called geometry options. So in the geometry options, we are going to do the extrusion depth. So I'm just going to start scrolling on that. And I'll zoom, you'll be able to see better as we add more to it, but let me zoom in here. I'm holding the space bar and clicking to get. So you can see we can drag that out. And now it's making it hard to see, so we're going to do some things to help see the actual 3D text. But first we're going to play around with the bevel. We're going to make the bevel style convex. You can try all these different options and see what you like. And I'm going to lower the bevel depth. And now we're going to add a light so we can see it. So we're going to come up to layer, new, light. And we're going to make a point light. A point light's kind of like a light bulb without a lamp, where it makes light go all around in 360 degrees. I am going to leave this at the default. The only thing I'm going to change, well, your fall off might not be smooth, so your default might be none. So just make sure you change the fall off to smooth, and make sure cast shadows is checked. I think on the default it's not. So we're going to press OK. And now we can see it's changing the color already, but we're going to parent the light to the layer. So we're going to take this spiral thing, it's called the pick whip, and we're going to click on the spiral, hold shift, and drag it to the text layer, and then release the mouse before releasing shift. So I'm clicking, I'm on the point light, and this is parenting the light to the text layer. I'm clicking on the pick whip, holding shift, and making it parent to the text layer. I'm releasing the mouse, then I'm releasing the shift key. So in the light layer, you can see it's affecting it a little bit so far, but we're gonna adjust the light layer a little bit. So in the position, we're going to come down to transform position. I am going to affect the Z axis, which is the last number, and it makes it closer. And you can also play with the other axis depending on how your text is to get it in the right place. And you can see it's starting to light it up a little bit more. And we're going to add a second light too. If you still can't see it, let's make the text a little bit of a lighter color and see if we can get that looking better. Now you can start to see it a little more, but we're going to add a second light to really light up the scene. So layer, new light. It's going to be a point light too. We have all the same properties, and then we're just going to come into that light and we're going to transform, and we're going to move the position. And you can kind of have one on one side and one on the other, and you can see how it's starting to really light it up. But you can take a lot of time to get this looking right. There we go, that's starting to look better. And you can play around with the intensity on your lights. So really take time to adjust both of your lights and get them in the right position so that your text is really lit up nicely. Okay, so you are going to take more time on this, but just so you can see, have those two lights in there, get the text lit up, and then we're going to play around a little more with the text layer. I just want to show you a couple more options. So the specular shininess is a nice one. So you can scroll and you can see what's happening there. Also, diffuse is a good one, and it affects how specular shininess, if you increase it, it tightens up the area where light actually shines. So I'll show you again. So see how the higher the specular shininess, the smaller area that the light is shining on it. And then diffuse, it affects how the light is like spreading across the word. So the higher this is, the more the light's spreading across it. So you can play around with both of those. You can obviously mess with the other options here, but those are two that I think will help get your text light up nicely. So if you want your text to start later in, let me just fit that back. So the text layer is going throughout the entire scene. And sorry, mine's taking a while to render. So if you don't want it to start right away, like if you just want the video to be going, you can just come and click on this on the text layer bar here, and you can just drag it like that and have it start wherever you want it to start. And you can add an opacity and stuff. The camera's still tracking, but it's not actually, the text won't actually show up till you start it there. And of course you can add some keyframes and add transparency in there too if you want. So if you save this, Command Control S, it's going to change in Premiere because it's a linked composition. So the Premiere file is going to update, and I'm going to show you how you can adjust the text in Premiere. Okay, so after you've finished your text in After Effects and you save it, then it should show up in Premiere Pro in this linked text. So you can, it's not rendered. See how this line is red here? So if you want to really see it smooth and see how it's working, I'm not going to do that right now, but you can sequence render into out and let it work, and then this line will turn green, and then you can see the effects and the motion tracking super smooth. But what I do want to show you is you can change the text here. So if you had a client who changed their mind about their project, you wouldn't have to go back into After Effects and change the whole thing around if you had built it in Premiere and were editing in Premiere. You can just change what the text says here. So you can double click, it's F on the keyboard, or I just double click on here to get the matched frame. So you can double click on the linked link, or you can click on it and press F. And then you can come up here to where it says Effects Controls, and you can see there's a box, and you can write mountains or whatever your client is asking you to change it to, and the text changes, but it keeps all of the settings, and it keeps the lights, and it keeps the tracking. So this is just a quick thing with that dynamic link that can make your life easier in the future. Okay, so we're in After Effects. We're going to work on creating some simple masks with text, but you can really mask anything that you want for your project. So we're going to make a new composition. Just make sure it's 1920 by 1080, and I'm just going to make mine short for the purposes of this demonstration, but you're going to make yours depending on what your project is and how long your animation is going to be. Okay. So I'm going to make a text layer. I'm going to make two text layers, and we're going to mask it so the text, one of the text layers looks like it's coming out from behind the other one. So I'm going to create one that says making, and then I just click out of here, click the text again, and make another layer that says masks. So just make sure you have two separate text layers in here. And we're going to animate the position on the second word, masks. So let me just get them set up where I want them to be. So I want to make it look like masks is flying out of the word making. So I have to create a mask to do that. So I'm going to get the text where I want it to be. I'm going to move the time indicator, and I'm going to move the second word, masks, to where I want it to end up. So just getting it, maybe I want it to end up out here, wherever you want it to end up. I'm going to come open up the layer, transform, and I'm going to start the position stopwatch, and then I'm moving the time indicator back, and I'm just setting up an animation. So you have two keyframes there. And now I'm going to make the mask. layer, new, solid, and you can make it any color you want. It doesn't matter. Press OK. Now the important thing is that this new layer goes in between the two words, and masks should be on the bottom and making should be on the top. So your top word that you want to show up will be on the top, and the word you want coming out of the second word will be on the bottom, and the solid's going to be in the middle. So we can zoom in. We're going to take this solid layer and we're going to line it up with the end of the word making. So you can zoom in really close and you can just get it perfect, depending on how your word is. And then here's the trick. When we're in the masks text layer, so the one we want masked, so you're going to come where it says track mats, and in the masks layer, the bottom text, you are going to check alpha inverted mat. And let me zoom out. And you can, whoa, see what's happening. So that solid just made a mask. Anything behind it, we're not going to see because we created that alpha inverted mask. So that is the first way to make a mask. Oh, another fun thing you can do is add a motion blur on the moving layer. So on the mask layer, it's this little, like these 3 circle things. You just click on here. Let's see if my computer's going to show. So it just makes it look like it has a little more movement, which is kind of fun. So play around with that, you know, have one word coming out of another. So the next thing is we're going to draw a mask with the pen tool. So I'm going to just do a new project. I'm not going to save, but you're going to want to save yours. New composition, just going to keep it the same as I had it. And I'm going to import a photo. So Command-Control-I to import. And you can do this with any kind of photo, or you can do it with video footage too, which is really cool. So I'm just going to drag it into here. And if it's big, you can scale it down. Very first thing we're going to do is duplicate the layer. So we're going to have 2 layers. So that's Command-Control-D. So we have 2 of the very same layer. And if it is a video file, what you want to do to the top layer, the one we're going to be working on and using the pen tool on, the one we're making the mask of, you want to right-click, time, and you want to freeze frame if it's a video layer. That will be helpful for this. But if not, you don't have to worry about that, just so you know how to do the video. So on that same layer, if you freeze framed, you're working on the layer that has the freeze frame, and you're going to come up to the pen tool, and I want to have the text, or it could be a text or an object that you're using for this, but I want it coming behind this rock. So I want to mask out the rock. So you are going to zoom in and spend a lot of time getting yours super nice and awesome, but I'm just going to do it quick for the purposes of this video. And then you're going to, wherever you want the object or text in this case not to show up, you're going to make your outline with your pen tool. So I'm just going to make mine go around the whole edge of the scene. So now we can see if I close the eye on the other layer, we have created a mask. The pen tool, when you're drawing it on footage or an image file, automatically makes a mask. Super awesome, quick way to do that. So I'm just going to add text. I'm going to click out of here. I'm going to add text so it comes up. And we're going to put the text in between the 2. And now you can't see it, so you can animate it. And you can literally do this with anything. So just to show you what it looks like, I'll start the position, move the timeline indicator back, come up, and you can see Now it's hidden behind those rocks, and it depend, you know, you can make your mask really detailed on the edges so it looks perfect, but you can see how you can put any kind of object, shape, text, anything masked into a layer like this.